Well, we are a little bit past, I guess, the halfway point, but still some surprises here. The Eagles are a bit of a surprise. I'd say more than a bit of a surprise to you too.
Not as much as the Commanders were after last night. Come on.
Yeah, right. Oh, the one thing, Bob and John, I think I know I make picks for every game every week for the Daily News, and this week I went 5-9. I think I thought I won one of my picks against the spread because the parity in the league is so crazy. We've talked about this, but it is so difficult to predict, especially this deep in the season with some injuries, like you said. Even the undefeated Eagles can come out on a Monday night football game at home against a team and an organization that's pretty much been one of the laughing stocks of the league and lay an egg. Obviously, the officials had something to do with it, but yeah, I think there's some things that are the way we think they were going to be. For example, Patrick Mahomes is still great. The Buffalo Bills are still one of the classes of the NFL. But on the other hand, you have my Super Bowl picks, Packers and Raiders. I mean, could that look any worse?
No.
I was gonna remind you of that.
I shouldn't have brought it up. I don't know why I did. But and even the Denver Broncos with Russell Wilson and Bob, you bring it up, the NFC East. I mean, the NFC East is essentially, along with the AFC East, the class of the NFL right now. I saw a stat yesterday that through 10 weeks, this year's NFC East has the highest winning percentage of any division since the NFL went to this format, which is so funny because the last several years, every about December 15th or 16th, I've been writing to Elias Sports Bureau, which keeps all these historical stats, finding out what the worst division was in NFL history because the NFC East has kept challenging it year on year, 2020, 2021. So everything's kind of on its head right now.
Well,
The
go
East,
ahead.
though, when you think about it, I mean, what Brian Dable's been able to do with the Giants, the fact that the Cowboys are the Cowboys, and they did it without Dak Prescott for so many weeks. The whole division is just absolutely phenomenal. No team now with the Commanders winning last night, no team under 500. I don't think. I mean,
Nope.
it's nuts. It's nuts.
It is. And
it's like 1978 again. I mean,
that's right. And, two trends I noticed so far through past the midway point of the NFL this year, I think, is number one, the running game is back. And there's a lot of reasons for that, I think. But teams like the Giants, the Bears, the Ravens, but more than ever, a lot of teams are going to a running game because either defenses aren't built for it or their offenses aren't built to throw the ball because there's different quarterbacks coming into the league, whatever the case may be. The other trend, though, I think, is that coaching matters right now more than ever in the league. And in the NFC East, Brian Dable and his staff have done a great job of steering teams away from his team's weaknesses and catering to their strengths. I think Dallas, in particular, on defense with their coordinator, Dan Quinn, has done an excellent job. Ron Rivera is more of the motivator type, but certainly had his team ready to play at the right time for this upset. And in Philadelphia, Sirianni's running a great program right now where you can see that the Eagles are actually the spearhead of this running game controlling the NFL right now. And they are running an offense that is perfect for Jalen Hurts. They added A.J. Brown, who is a dynamic weapon to a team that already had a lot of skill positions. And the defense that Jonathan Gannon's coaching, with the exception of the Washington game, has not been outcoached really any week. So I think coaching, I see X's and O's. When you go back and watch the film, I think the teams that are winning right now, a lot of them are running the ball, but a lot of them are simply just not losing the game from the head coaching standpoint.
Well, I think Philadelphia and the Giants are two teams that nobody picked to go to the Super Bowl, and they may not. But another one would be Minnesota, who is 8-1. I mean, that's a team that nobody took a look at and said, seriously, they're going to be a championship contender.
Great point.
And they are.
Great point. And Kevin O'Connell, I mean, I think it's so funny when a team like the Vikings, and the Giants are in this category too, but when a team like the Vikings keeps winning games where, like when they won in Miami, they played terribly and they still beat the Dolphins. And you watch games like that and you watch Kirk Cousins and some of the interceptions he threw in this Buffalo game, and you say, how does this team only have one loss? And it's a legitimate question. And obviously the Bills helped the Vikings win that game. There's no question about it. But in the modern NFL, where so many of these games are anyone could win it, anyone can lose it, the good coaching helps, but also it's coming down more than ever. And this is not by accident. This is how the NFL wants it, with the salary cap, with how the way the draft is in reverse order from record from the previous season. They want it so that it comes down to the final 3, 4, 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. And credit to the Vikings. You watch the Buffalo game, that's exhibit A with the turnovers they forced. And credit to a team like the Giants, who a lot of their games in the first half, they look like what I thought they were going to be. They look like one of the worst offenses in the league. They look like they're going to lose. And then a lot of times they go in at halftime, they come out and their plan's different. Their adjustments are great. The Vikings, I'm very curious. I don't know what you guys think about the Vikings. I watched that game, and even though they win that game against Buffalo, I see Kirk Cousins and the way he's throwing the ball up for grabs, and I say, they still can't win. They still can't win the prize. But
look who's catching it. Look who's catching that ball. Between Adam Thielen is always going to be great, but Jefferson. Oh. How can you turn your back when you know he's on the field? He's electric.
No, you're right. And Dalvin Cook is kind of the straw that stirs the drink. He didn't do well most of that day, but he breaks that big run. That really kind of changed the game. They still needed help, but that run and then the Jefferson catch, of course, if they stay healthy, you have to consider them a team that's going to go deep. I'm still skeptical, though. I could have egg on my face. As I've mentioned earlier, I have no idea who's going to win the Super Bowl, right?
Well, you talk about running game, Pat. Yeah. And to me, the running game used to be, well, we're going to give it to the fullback. We're going to give it to the halfback. A lot of times it's the quarterback just taking it now. There's Absolutely. A lot more running from quarterbacks. Josh Allen's at the top of the list, but Patrick Mahomes is still not afraid to run. Cousins not afraid to run. Your guy in New York, Jones, not afraid to run. Baltimore. There are a ton of big men that are quarterbacks now that will go and take the ball downfield. And that's changed a lot of perspective for a lot of teams on defense, hasn't it?
Definitely. Yeah. And I think I was talking to some GMs and scouting directors a couple of weeks ago, and they acknowledged that the type of quarterback that's coming out to them from college is different. I think Justin Fields is a great example of that.
Sure.
Jalen Hurts to an extent as well. But you're absolutely right. And it's not, the difference is if, when people listen to this and they go back and look at the stats, you and I are not saying that quarterbacks didn't run before and are running now. What we are saying, and what's so interesting this year, is that they are designing the offenses around these quarterbacks' running abilities. And that has happened before, but not at the rate we're seeing it right now. You mentioned it, but it's Jalen Hurts, it's Josh Allen, it's Lamar Jackson, it's Justin Fields, it's Daniel Jones, it's Kyler Murray, right? It's all these guys who they can throw the ball, but the reason they are in the NFL and were drafted high is their legs. Yeah. And you're seeing good coaches adapt to, well, how do we have to win this week? If we drop back 30 times, that's what they want us to do. So how do we change that up? I think the stat was that through, I want to say 9 weeks, that there were 7 quarterbacks that were on track to rush 100 or more times this season, which is just, that would be a record and is just an astounding number.